What's up, awesome YouTubers? Ryan1988 or Justin back here to do a video for you all. Hope you're all doing well out there, and today I want to talk about James Wan's newest horror movie, and that is Malignant, and I also want to cover and talk about his horror movies that he's directed. So I know he's directed a few films outside of the horror movie genre, Furious 7, Aquaman, its upcoming sequel, Aquaman 2, and one of my favorite revenge flicks, Death Sentence, probably his most underrated movie. But I want to focus on his horror movies, and I want to, rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. Again, I'm going to talk about Malignant just for a second and give you my thoughts on it. But I want to rank all his horror movies that he's directed because Malignant is the newest horror movie he's directed since Conjuring II. Now, James Wan is one of my favorite directors. I think he's written some stuff. He's produced some stuff. I love James Wan. Up until now, there really hasn't been a lot of films that I have disliked or thought were okay from him. I either think movies from him are really enjoyable, films that I really enjoy, or movies that I love. So going into Malignant, talking about James Wan's latest movie and latest horror movies, Malignant for me was a disappointment. It's not a film that I hate. It's not a film that I love. I just think this film is okay. And I know this is divided by, moviegoers. I know it's divided by critics. I think critics are praising it a lot more than moviegoers are. But a lot of people that I know, a lot of people I talk to and friends seem to really love this movie. It's a bizarre film. Without giving anything away, this is not going to be a Conjuring type movie. It's not a ghost film. It's not a supernatural film. I think there's some supernatural elements in it, but as far as a haunted house movie goes, you're not getting it with this movie. This is more of a slasher giallo film, and I appreciate some slasher films, some giallo films. Those are two of my favorite subgenres within the horror movie genre. But for me, Malignant from James Wan is one of my least favorites. It is actually my least favorite James Wan directed film. It's his weakest movie in my opinion. I know that might kind of, bring some people down. Some people might question my opinions, but, we have our different opinions, guys. That's what makes us moviegoers, movie fans. We're either going to love different things or we're going to not like different things. Our opinions will be different. So let's get into the plot, and then I will give you some of my pros and cons with this movie, because I don't hate the movie. I think there's some strong things here, and I think there's some not so strong things about this movie. But Malignant surrounds a woman named Madison. In the beginning of the movie, she loses her fiance or husband, but she also loses her unborn child. And I'm not going to tell you how, but, she loses people in her life. The only person she has in her life now is her sister. So after losing people in her life, she starts, seeing this human-like figure being come to her by the name of Gabriel. They are connected somehow in the past together, which I'm not going to give away. But there's something there between Madison and Gabriel. And Madison is seeing all the killings that Gabriel is doing. So he's haunting her, he's coming towards her, but he's also killing people in her life or surrounding her life. And the detectives on this case, or on these different cases, start believing that Madison is the one doing it. So her sister has to kind of prove to them that Madison is not the one doing it. There's a lot of things that unravel in this movie that I don't want to give away, and my plot synopsis is probably terrible. If I wanted to talk about things, I think, it would be a more better detailed plot synopsis, but that's kind of the idea about the movie. Again, this is a giallo slasher movie mixed in with some supernatural elements, but it's not going to be a Conjuring film. It's not going to be, kind of an Insidious movie. This is not a haunted house film. Again, it's more of a slasher giallo film. And once again, I appreciate all that stuff. I love giallo films. I love slasher movies. I love James Wan movies. I love him as a director. He's one of my favorites. But again, this is a film that is definitely my least favorite James Wan, film that he's directed. Out of all his movies, this is the one that's disappointed me the most, because I really liked the trailers. I thought the trailers looked interesting. I thought the kind of the way the movie looked and the way he was directing things, from what we saw in the trailer, looked really interesting. I was hooked by the trailer. So let's go into some pros, and then I'll go into some cons. So the first pro in this movie is James Wan as a director. I think his directing is really good here. Not my favorite directing from him, but still really good. He does some, angles. He directs with certain angles. He directed this movie really well, made it have a eerie setting. I love the house in this movie. I like the way he directed outside of the house and inside the house. Thought that was very cool. There's some really cool shots in this movie that he did great. And so his directing is really strong here. It's a strong directing. Love the music. Even though I felt like they kind of overused the music a lot in this movie. We really didn't have like a break in between the music. It kind of just kept going and going and going. I did overall love the music. The opening credit music was great. There's some great music throughout this. Again, I feel like they overused it too much, but you have a great soundtrack here. Practical effects. The gore in this movie. Great stuff. If you guys love practical effects, there's some really good practical effects in this movie, especially in the third act of the movie, which I really love the third act of the film. Before we got to the third act and this twist that happens in this movie, I was almost hating this movie. Like, I was going to hate this movie walking out of the theater, I'm sorry. Because I did not like the first and the second act. I thought they were terrible. There's again some really good stuff in there, but when it came to the writing and it came to the acting, I was not crazy about it, especially the writing. Now, this was written by a different writer. James Wan did not write this, and I don't know if he's, I know he's co-written some of this stuff. I don't know if he's like fully wrote a screenplay for a film that he's directed. But the writer or the screenplay in this, the screenplay, I'll just say, it was written by somebody different. And it's really disappointing because he also, and I'm drawing a blank on the writer, he also wrote Hellfest, and I love Hellfest. I think that's a great slasher film that not a lot of people care for, but I love that. But he wrote the screenplay for this, and I just found it to be really bad. I wasn't a big fan of it. Dialogue, the way characters were written, how they acted in this movie. Some of the stuff that happens in this movie, I kind of laughed at. I was not really into the first and second act of the film. There were some strong moments in those two acts, but as far as like just kind of as a whole, the first two acts were just letdowns, and I thought they were overall terrible. Get to the third act of the movie, and that surprised me. It's surprising people. There's a twist in this movie that when it happens, I was kind of hooked. I was like, okay, this is getting better. And if we did not have this twist and this third act that I thought was overall something that I loved, I would have thought this movie was just completely awful. I would have hated this movie, to be quite honest. If we did not have the third act, I would have hated it. So overall, again, there's some pros, there's some cons with this movie. Is it like a film that I hate? No, because that third act saved the movie. But for me, this is the weakest James Wan film that we've had. So I'm going to rate this movie a 2 out of 4. For me, if it was a 1 or a 1.5, especially a 1, those would have been films that I hated. But for me, I was more let down with this movie because I wanted more. I know people are loving it right now. I know there's friends of mine who love it. But for me, I didn't care for it too much. So again, strong third act, great practical, kills, practical effects. Overall, a great soundtrack, despite it being overused. You do have a great soundtrack here, and I think, James Wan as a director, he did a really good job here. Not some of my favorite stuff that he's directed, but, some really good shots in this movie, kind of made the movie, I guess, a little bit more likable. And again, the cons have to be, really the writing, the screenplay. I just think it's bad. Overall bad. You get to that third act and, it improved a little bit. And then the acting, it was pretty good to awful. There's never an actor in this movie where I'm like, okay, they're great. Even the lead actress, I thought she gave the best performance in this movie, but I still, wasn't a big fan of her. So, again, I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 4. Again, it's not for me, but it's a movie that I find there's some interesting stuff in the film. So eventually, later on, I will go back and rewatch the movie and check it out again. And I own all of James Wan's films, so of course, I'm going to own this one. I might not buy it day one, but I will definitely buy it at some point and own it in my collection and own it with the other James Wan films that I have. So now ranking his movies, his horror movies at least. Everything outside of his horror movies, I'm not going to rank. I'm really just going to focus on his horror movies. So he's directed 7 horror movies in total. So coming in at number 7 is Malignant. Again, I give this movie a 2 out of 4. You guys know my opinion. This is the weakest of his horror movies that he's directed, and this is definitely my least favorite of all his films. So Malignant comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the sequel to Insidious, and that is Insidious Chapter 2. Now, like Malignant, this was a film when I first saw it, I was more let down with it, but over time, I've actually grown to really enjoy this. I think this is a lot of fun. I think it has some great suspense in the movie. You got some great returning actors and characters in the film. They continue on where the first one left off, and while I don't think it's as strong as the first movie, and it's definitely not one of James Wan's strongest films that he's directed, I do think this is a pretty solid and enjoyable film that he's directed, and it's an enjoyable sequel in the Insidious franchise. I think for me, this ranks my 3rd favorite Insidious movie outside of that franchise so far. I look forward to seeing what Patrick Wilson does with Insidious 5. I know he's going to return in the movie, but he is also going to direct it. So I look forward to that. Again, this is a film, and I think kind of like Malignant will happen with Malignant. Every time I watch Insidious Chapter 2, I find it more enjoyable. So I think I'll find the same way with Malignant, but this is definitely still one of his least favorite films, in my opinion. So Insidious Chapter 2 comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is the first movie he's ever directed, and this is based on a short film he directed, and it was written by Lee Wynell, who is fantastic, and that is Saw. So Saw right here, it's a film that I really loved when I first saw it. Now, after rewatching the movie, while I still see a lot of strong things about the movie, I also, in my opinion, it's a film that goes down in quality each time I watch it. While it's still high up there as far as one of the best in the Saw franchise, outside of his other films that I'm going to talk about as far as his horror movies go, this is definitely a James Wan movie that has went down in quality, but I could still watch it and really enjoy the movie. So like Malignant gets a 2 out of 4 for me. I think Insidious Chapter 2 gets a 2.5 out of 4 for me. And this one right here would get a 3 out of 4 for me as far as James Wan films go. 3 out of 4, still a great movie. It just goes down in quality over the years since I've first seen the film. If you've never seen the movie, I think you're going to be surprised with it, but I think a lot of people have seen this film. So, not Insidious, but Saw comes in at number 5 for me as far as his directed horror movies go. Coming in at number 4 is the sequel to Conjuring, and that is Conjuring II. I love this movie. This one gets a 3.5 out of 4 for me. I think this is one of the best horror movie sequels that we have out there. It's definitely one of James Wan's best movies. Definitely high up there for me. As far as all his movies go, I really, really love the movie. While it's not as strong as the first one, in my opinion, this was a great continuation to the first film. It's a great standalone movie. It's a great sequel. And I really love, and I still love, the relationship and the chemistry between Patrick Wilson, and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think they're great in this. This movie has some great scares. It has some overall great acting in this. The lead girl in this movie, she's great. And there's a moment between Vera Farmiga and her where they're talking outside in the backyard, and just a great moment there. You really feel sad for this girl who's going through all this stuff in this movie. This is a great one, guys. If it's been a while since you've seen it, or if you've never seen it, definitely check out Conjuring II. Coming in at number 3, this one right here is going to get a 4 out of 4. I absolutely love it, and that is Insidious. Now, I saw this movie when it first came out in theaters 10 years ago, which is crazy. And I still think this movie is one of the best James Wan films that we've had, and it's one of the best horror movies that we've had. I really love Insidious. Such a great haunted house movie, great eerie haunted house film. It's fun, it's scary. In my opinion, I think it's a scary movie. And again, you have a great cast here. You know, Rose Byrne, Patrick Wilson, Lynn Shay, who carries the franchise. Really love Lynn Shay. This was her kind of return to the horror movie genre, and she's great in this movie. I think she's a great actress in general. But Insidious, what a great movie what an awesome film. I take that back. What an awesome film in my opinion. And I really love Insidious. So if it's been a while since you've seen this one, we got October season coming up. So give this one a rewatch, guys. I think I'm going to watch it tonight, or another film that I'm going to talk about in a second. But this is still one of James Wan's best movies. And Lee Wynell also had some part in this movie. He wrote the film. He's in the film. Lee Wynell, I think, is very underrated. Invisible Man was great. Upgrade was great. Insidious Chapter 3 was great. He directed those movies. I really love Lee Wynell. Love James Wan, and this is definitely one of the best ones from James Wan as far as his directing goes. And also Barbara Hershey's in the movie, and I love Barbara Hershey, so great actress there. Coming in at number 2. So number 2 and number 1, I went back and forth on, but this is number 2 as far as his horror movies go. One of my favorite ones from him, both a horror movie and just one of my favorite films from James Wan, and that is Dead Silence from 2007. Next to Death Sentence, I think this is, if not his most underrated, one of his most underrated horror movies, and one of his most underrated movies. I love Dead Silence. I wish I would have saw this movie in theaters. I think this came out in 2007, and when it was coming out in theaters, I really wasn't expecting too much from it, so I just watched it when it came out on DVD. And, I love this. This is a film that is, in my opinion, just truly scary. I think it's directed, so well in this. It's actually just directed awesome, if that makes sense. I love James Wan's directing in this film. I think he creates great build-up in this movie. He creates great scares. Either it's, Mary Shaw being a, just horrifying villain in this movie, or just the way he directed some of the stuff. It's very scary. You got a great setting in this movie. I love the setting. I love the overall acting in this movie. I love the suspense. If you have not seen Dead Silence, because I know there's some people who have not heard of this movie or have never seen it, check out Dead Silence. This was his second movie he directed after Saw, and it did not do well at the box office. I wish now I would have went to have seen this movie, because I love Dead Silence. So if you've never seen it, please go watch it. Watch it this weekend, guys. If you see Malignant, go watch this film after that. Just kind of have a James Wan weekend. Or watch it in October. This is a film that I might watch this and Insidious tonight. Watch 2 of my favorite James Wan films and kind of give them a revisit. I love this film, so please go check out Dead Silence. Again, you got some great practical effects in this movie, a great setting, some great eerie scares, eerie moments in the film, and some great acting and a great twist, which I'm not going to give away if you've never seen this. But check out Dead Silence, guys. And coming in at number 1 is The Conjuring. So again, I went back and forth between Dead Silence and The Conjuring. This is by far my favorite James Wan film of all time. It's my favorite horror movie. It's my favorite James Wan movie. I love The Conjuring. I love a great haunted house movie. But what I really love about this film is that it is truly scary. And it's a movie that doesn't rely on a lot of jump scares. It doesn't rely on a film that you have to see everything for it to be scary. There are some moments where you don't see anything. It could be like something in the corner that you might not see, and it's terrifying. You got fantastic acting here all around. Again, I mentioned it, but Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, their chemistry is perfect in these movies. They're awesome in these movies and in this film. You got Lily Taylor. Hopefully I'm saying her name right, but she's in the film. She's a familiar face. She does a great job. I'm drawing a blank on her husband's name, but the husband in the film, Lily Taylor's husband, he's great in this movie. It is a scary haunted house movie. It's a scary movie in my opinion, and if you've only seen this once, go give it a revisit. If you've never seen this movie, this is a film that you have to watch. Scary elements in the movie, awesome acting, awesome build-up with things. James Wan's best directed film out there, and I love The Conjuring. Scary third act, scary moments throughout the movie. This is a film that if I watch it pitch black in the dark, I will be terrified. So The Conjuring, definitely check out The Conjuring if you've never seen it, or if it's been a while since you've seen it, revisit it this spooky season coming up. But yeah, I love The Conjuring. But anyway, guys, that is my opinion on James Wan's new film, Malignant. Again, give your opinion, guys. Go watch the movie. If you're wanting to go to the theater, if you're willing to go to the theater, or if you feel comfortable, definitely go to the theater, guys. Somehow go to the theater, again, if you feel comfortable. Now, if you want to sit at home and watch it, it's on HBO Max. Check it out on HBO Max. But yeah, give Malignant a watch. See what you think about it. My opinion is different from other people's opinions. So if you love the film, if you appreciate the movie more than I did, that's totally awesome. We all have our opinions, and that's what makes movie lovers just awesome, is that we all don't have to have the same opinion on movies. We can all appreciate and enjoy or love movies more than others. So Malignant is out there now. Check it out, guys. I give that movie a 2 out of 4. I did not rate any of these other films, or I didn't give my rating for some of these other movies. So check out my ranking down below of the James Wan horror movies and how I rate them. I always rate movies, the highest being 4 and the lowest being 1. So definitely check out where I kind of ranked or rated these other films. So, but anyway, guys, Malignant review and my, ranking of James Wan's horror movies from my least favorite to my favorite. Once again, I apologize about the rambling. It happens. Sometimes I can't talk, but I appreciate your guys' love and support. Thank you guys for getting me to 4,000 subscribers, by the way. I want to give you guys a huge shout out for that. You guys are the best, and I really appreciate the love and support. So thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Please like this video. Definitely do that. But most importantly, thank you all so much for watching. It's going to be 13 years, I think, in December, so that's crazy to think that I've been around that long, but your guys' support, your guys' love means a lot to me. So once again, just thank you guys so much for reaching me to 4,000 subscribers. That is crazy. I never thought I would get there, but you guys are the best, and I appreciate you. So as always, you guys are awesome. You guys rock. In with the positive, out with the negative. Go eat some Skittles. So much love to you all. And remember that you are amazing and you are awesome, and to always be yourself. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.